You are listening to the Marc Guzman podcast experience. We're going to power plants and property values. How do power plants affect property values? And recently, there's been some comments made that windmills drop value or drop property values. Is that true? Have you seen that? And
then to be really specific, windmills that we're talking about those wind generating turbines that you see out there that PG&E has installed throughout most of the Central Valley, if you're familiar with that in California, or different parts of more rural open space. And as Marc was bringing out, the argument was thrown out, or the word is out, that this is supposedly bringing property values down.
Now, one thing to keep in mind is that if you live in the Bay Area, you're not going to see windmills being placed right next to the highway or anywhere close to these heavily populated residential areas.
Because they have to put them in areas that actually generate a lot of wind, and they've done wind studies, and generally it's in open space areas.
Correct. So when you're looking at where they're placing windmills, it's really in open space areas and much farther out from metropolitan areas. So when that's the case, guess what? Those property values are already going to be way less without those windmills than if they were located right in the city. And so I think people are just seeing a correlation and misunderstanding it for a direct cause and effect, right?
Right. Well, specifically, Trump made the comment, I think it was Trump, right? That windmills are bringing property values down. And then that catchword has gotten out there. And frankly, I think it's, again, just complete bunk. Now, there are certain arguments where if you're close to a nuclear power plant or a coal mine, that, yes, that probably will be less desirable.
But you can also pull examples of some areas where the coal mine, the closer you live to it, the more the property values go up.
Yeah.
Well, that would be if you're too close to it. Right. But the closer you are to it, if that's the main source of income for many of the residents in town, you're going to see property values go up the closer you get to the coal mine. Now, there is a balance, right? Or at some point where, okay, well, now you might be too close to the coal mine, and then, yeah, you might have much higher rates of cancer, and then that just really depresses the neighborhood.
Right. Well, again, it comes down to the supply and demand and being close to where the action is, which is the whole reason why urban infill, in which is what SB 50 is trying to make easier to produce or fast track throughout the whole zoning requirements, is trying to address. That's the whole reason why those areas tend to be more expensive, because that's where people want to be. Whereas, again, property values being much less near windmills has nothing to do with the windmills, so to speak, as much as it does the fact that it was out there already, lower property values because it's in the middle of the rural boondocks, so to speak.
Yeah. Now, if you're looking to go out and buy a property, it is something that you want to take into consideration where the local power plants are, because look at what happened to Japan. They had very clean nuclear fusion power plants, and what happened? It melted.
But that was because of Godzilla.
Yeah, that's right. And so it melted and completely destroyed towns, cities. And to this day, you cannot go into those cities unless you're properly guided by a tour guide and only under certain controlled days by the government. And no one lives there. Like, it's horrible there. So you could have a nuclear power plant that's very clean, works well, but then you could have a meltdown. All the more reason
to have more windmills, in my opinion, where it's clean power energy. And again, the setbacks from these windmills to is so far that you're probably not going to see houses really, really close or bordering these windmills, because if you've ever seen them driving through the freeway, they're all off towards the open space areas, and then maybe a subdivision or a group of houses is like several miles away.
And I think this is all going to change here very soon in California, because you have the electrification coming up. A lot of new developments are being required to have solar panels, renewable energy that fully powers their electrical needs. Power.
And again, that's so that we can get away from gas and make everything electric, because that's a more sustainable source of energy as opposed to burning coal or getting natural gas and digging it up from the ground and things of that nature.
Which, when you consider that, is also another reason why construction costs go up. There's also another reason besides supply and demand that create very high construction costs, that at the end of the day, developers have to sell or rent properties for a lot of money. And it's because construction costs in California are very high, even labor, to a point where
Gas,
developers
oil.
have to import laborers from other states, even out of the country, to come to California to help out, which is a perfect transition into our next topic,